Hello everyone and welcome back to Hey Dad RC. Today, as promised, coming up hot on the heels of the track run of the Team Associated RB10, I told somebody in the comments I would be doing a follow-up video, so this one might be long-winded, so if you find it interesting, hopefully you stick around. But before I talk about the car itself, I was going to talk about what led me to buy this car in the first place. Back when the Losi Pro Moto X was announced, I didn't see that coming out of nowhere, and I just started saving up my money because at the time I knew I wanted to get it. And as time went on, I had time to think about it as I was saving money. I started to worry if it was something that the novelty of the motorcycle was something that was going to wear off after a while. Not saying I'll never get it, but I decided at that point that right now wasn't the time for me to get it. So I had this money saved up and was trying to decide what to buy. And at that time, Tower Hobbies was having some decent sales going on. I was tempted by some of their huge price drops on some of their ARMA vehicles, but I didn't do that. But at the same time, they were running a promo of buying specific Tamiya kits that came with a free Tactic radio. So that's why I picked up the Sand Viper that I have yet to start building. And with the rest of the money, that's why I decided to buy the RB10. Crawlers and solid axle monster trucks aside, typically I really enjoy driving two-wheel drive vehicles. I just enjoy the way that they drive. I find it a bit more challenging, and to me that's just enjoyable. But looking out there for two-wheel drive buggies, which I really like to drive in the summer, there's not a lot of ready-to-run offerings out there, really, when you look at it. I didn't want to spend crazy money on an Associated race kit because I'm not a racer. I already have a Traxxas Bandit. I've got a slew of two-wheel drive Tamiya buggies and, the since discontinued Arma Raider. But right now, there's not a lot of two-wheel drive offerings out there. So I kept coming back to this one. I knew it was brushless. I knew I had the dynamic vehicle control feature. And I kept thinking, all right, Team Associated, just under $300. Eventually, I decided to give it a shot because I've owned a couple of the Associated short course trucks in the past. And the one thing I did find about Associated is they just drive real nice. They always seem to be real smooth. So that and wanting a two-wheel drive car, that is why I settled on the RB10. Now, going into it, I knew with a 2S battery, this car's not very fast at all, so let's get that out of the way. There's plenty of speed runs on YouTube to check that out. This car will do 21 miles an hour on a 2S LiPo, which is what I did the track run on. And we all know, if you've watched the track run video of this car, it really disappointed out there. I think it surprised everybody in not a good way. And, a few things I noticed trying to drive that car around the track, which also doubled as the first run of this car. It was just all over the place. Trying to land this car cleanly off of the ramp was near impossible because this gyro was constantly working to keep the wheels straight. There is a way to adjust that. But first, out of the box, steering servo, a little bit slow to me. Kind of to be expected in most ready-to-run vehicles, and not something that I normally change out. If I get the rest of this car to drive the way that I want, I might actually put a bit better servo in there. But out of the box, I went over the car, looked at everything, and the one thing I noticed, there was trouble in both of the front shocks right out of the box. They were both leaking, and there was play in the spring between the top and bottom collars. Maybe I'll put a little video clip of that in here. So I took the shocks off, filled them, and I ended up putting the spacers in here. They give you a slew of spacers with the kit, by the way. So I ended up putting two, one, the thickest one that was in there, and then the next thickest one. I put one on each shock, and that kind of got them to where I want them. Other than that, I took this out last night quick on this 3-cell pack, because I just wanted to make sure the battery fit and that everything was good. I drove it for like 5 minutes, but again, what was apparent to me is these tires here, at least for where I run, are pretty crappy. And from my understanding, this buggy was released as a for kind of beginner people getting into RC racing, is a cheaper alternative. And obviously my track is not a groomed clay track. These tires just were not hooking up good on the grass. So as we see, I wanted to put a different tire, something that I had on hand. But I wanted to find something where the tires and the wheels weren't bigger, because I didn't want to create additional heat and stress on the electronics. So checking it out, I noticed that the tires off of the Tamiya Nissan Titan that we just did the track video on here last week, just about the same size. These Associated tires might be just a hair wider, but all in all, really the same size. And these hooked up pretty well in the grass, so when we take this out and run this later in this video, we'll see how it does. But like I said, the biggest issue driving this dynamic vehicle control, it has settings from 1, which is the most sensitive, all the way to 8, which 8 is turning it completely off. This thing was just constantly making it more difficult for me to drive. So there is a way to change that. That's why I've got the receiver cover off, because you have to take the receiver cover off to get to the buttons in here to change that setting. So we're going to do that right now. Okay, so with the receiver cover off, there's a couple of different buttons you have to push down depending on what you want to change, and the directions for changing the dynamic vehicle control settings can be found not in the car manual, but in the XP120 radio manual on page 6. And the button we're going to be concentrating on is the gain button. You're going to hit that, push it in, and that flashes 2. That is where this is set, at least on this one, out of the factory, meaning it's set almost at its highest point. So you hit it again, and knocks it back down to 1, which is the highest, most sensitive setting. I'm going to hit it again and count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 beeps, which should mean now that the entire dynamic vehicle control is off. So there is no steering assist whatsoever. So turn it off, turn it back on, and with the settings before, you would move the car like this. It's going to move those wheels around to try and keep it centered, so we can tell now that it is completely off. And we'll be good to go testing it without any steering assist whatsoever. So we're going to get the receiver cover back on this car, get the body buttoned on, which it does fit over this big 3-cell, but getting that front body clip in is a pain in the butt. But we're going to get this thing buttoned back up. We're going to go outside and give it a rip on 3S without the gyro assist and see how it does. All right, so we got everything buttoned back up. We've got a 3-cell pack in there. Got the dynamic vehicle control turned off. We've got the rear tires from the DT02 Nissan Titan on there, and we'll see what happens. There's something else I forgot to mention, because like I said, this car tops out around 21 miles an hour on a 2S LiPo. This car really is geared for more low end as it is, so you still are going to need to be careful on that initial throttle punch. And keep in mind the grass is dry, the track's dry. And I'm a horrible driver. And I'm just feathering the throttle. Again, this is a 3S, but I'm nowhere near hitting close to full throttle on this. But I can already tell with that dynamic vehicle control turned all the way off. As long as I approached the, don't know who that was, as long as I approached the jump pretty well, you're not getting that constant left and right, back and forth with the front wheels of the vehicle trying to center itself. And I understand that this car is not ideal for my track. Obviously, I know I don't have a groomed track. And this car, you know, does, especially on 3S, a lot of low end burst. Again, with another, yet again, pretty dry summer. Even with these other tires on there, it's still pretty loose. I can't imagine how much more loose it would be if I had left the stock tires on there. So driving this on 3S around my cruddy old track, I'm guessing right now with a couple of subtle changes made, it would probably post better lap times. But yeah, definitely for the most part, taking this thing off the ramp, the landings are faring quite a bit better. So as long as we got a 3S, figure I'll just do a few passes here to show you guys. Definitely moves it a lot faster. Still, even full throttle, the different tires on there, it's still really just fights for grip. And initially I was going to pull those tires off of the Stampede I got, the blue Stampede, those tires that I got from the swap meet, but they were quite a bit larger than the originals, more so than I had thought, and I wanted to keep the tire size as close to the originals as I could. But definitely a lot more get up and go on a 3S pack, certainly more than I really need. So, you know, what's the verdict on the changes that I made? Tires are hooking up a little bit better, not extreme vast amounts. These tires themselves are harder than the compound on the originals, but I think for running out here, they are hooking up a little bit better. Turning that dynamic vehicle control off, as long as you feather that throttle at lower speeds, at least for me and what I'm used to driving, it's helping me. Maybe it would help newer drivers out quite a bit, I don't know, but my small track, I think it certainly fares better without that dynamic vehicle control on at all. So yeah, I think that's going to do it for this one, guys. If you've made it this far along in the video, man, you guys must have nothing better to do. In all seriousness, I'm just kidding. But if you have made it this far along in the video, I really appreciate that. And let me know in the comments, do you think this car with these changes deserves another run out here, another timed run on the track as it sits right now with a 2S pack? And if that answer is yes, do you think the new times should be recorded up on the board, or should we stick with the originals? So that's going to do it for this one, guys. As always, thanks for taking some time out of your day to check out my videos. And until next time, stay safe. We'll see you around.